So this is going to be a very quick pod, unless you guys interject and extend it, so to speak. We're in, we're out. It's Friday. I know you got shit to do. You're trying to get your weekend kicked off. I'm not going to talk your head off. There's not a lot going on anyway, so I will keep it short and sweet. You're dialed into the 265th installment of the Louie T Network podcast that starts now. Who else could it be? For me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 265th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Of course, I'm your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. We're going to start off the show by talking NBA Finals game number 1. I told you guys that this was going to be a riveting series. I shifted around my schedule. Generally, I don't give a shit about any other sport but the NFL in terms of shifting around my schedule to accommodate. I was doing live streams during Memphis Grizzlies playoff games. Okay, I can go back and watch. I recorded. I'll watch it at my own leisure. These finals games, I'm not going to watch. I'm not going to watch those on tape delay. Okay, it's not the 1980s. I'm going to watch this thing live. So I moved my Washington live stream to Wednesday so that I could be in front of my television at 9:07 when that ball was tipped and it was Warriors and Celtics game 1. I think this is going to be a fantastic series. I think the Celtics are going to win the series. I told you guys that already. I thought that if the Heat won, the Warriors would have cruised to another NBA championship. But I said if the Celtics win, and they did, and they were the better team, and if they beat the Heat, that they could beat the Warriors, and that I expected them to beat the Warriors. And I told you that this was this narrative out there that the Warriors were the better team and this, that, and the third. And I'm like, I'm not buying it. I don't know where that came from. And you kind of saw a little bit of it in game number 1. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, Steph Curry was fantastic in this game, especially in the odd number quarters. And you know, as he went, so did the rest of the team. When he was on fire in the first quarter and he hit 6 threes, they scored, 30 some odd points, had a lead, and it wasn't much. That was the crazy part. I think the lead was 4 in the first quarter, like 32-28 going into the second frame. And he had 21 points and he was outstanding, yet they were only up 4. That's a little bit of a scary proposition. He goes off like that. Generally, Golden State's up 12 or 14 going into the second quarter. That said, the Celtics, which they're known for their defense, had so many defensive lapses in that first quarter. There was one Curry 3 in transition where he comes down. Marcus Smart is pointing at Curry as if telling Jason Tatum, dude, you don't need to run out to the 3-point line on Draymond Green. We don't care about him out there. You need to go run to Steph Curry and run him off the 3-point line. And, Tatum's kind of like indecisive. Like, should I go over and check Draymond Green? And he's my guy. No one gives a shit about Draymond Green outside the 3-point line. Go and get Steph Curry. And so he walks into an easy 3-pointer, knocks it down. There were several of these defensive lapses in the first half. Really in this first quarter. They tightened his ass up in the second quarter. He did not score a single point, picked up 3 fouls in the second quarter. They were more physical. Emi Udoka said that they were going to be more physical with him in the second quarter, and they were. And then they also took advantage of the mismatch with him having to guard a bigger player in Jaylen Brown, had him pick up 2 fouls on the defensive side. Then Marcus Smart got into his body, forced Steph to push him off, got an offensive foul, and he had 3 fouls just like that. So they really turned the tide. I thought they ramped up their defensive intensity in the second quarter, also got offensively going, and they actually started the game hot, shooting just like Golden State did from behind the arc. So they took a lead at halftime, and I'm like, okay, these guys are right where they need to be. We know the Warriors are historically one of the best third quarter teams in NBA history. They did that thing that they always do. They come out of the locker room red hot, and for whatever reason, the opposition doesn't shoot it well while the Warriors are getting hot. And maybe it's a psychological thing. You see them knocking down all these shots, the crowd gets involved, all of a sudden starts to snowball, and all of a sudden you look up and the Celtics are down like 15 points. And you're like, oh shit, here we go. This thing could get ugly here if they don't reel these boys in. And they were able to somewhat stop the bleeding. Heading into the fourth, it was a 12-point deficit. They were down 92-80 for all of this defensive talk about the vaunted Boston Celtics defense. They can switch everything. They're one of these teams that, stands for Robert Williams, who can also step out on the perimeter and switch and guard Steph Curry, which he did quite a bit in game one. They play positionless basketball. They can switch everything. And so they're the new brand of basketball in the NBA. Teams that can switch everything, don't have to worry about any mismatches, and you are able to keep your defensive integrity because teams want to get that mismatch. If they have one guy on the court that can't play defense, that can't move his feet laterally, they're going to continuously put that guy in pick and roll to get their best ball handler or their guy that has the best ability to attack in that one-on-one situation. You can't hide guys that can't play defense anymore. The NBA has evolved to where if there's one guy on the court that he might be a three-point specialist. Back in the day, you could have a Del Curry on the court because he was a three-point assassin, but he couldn't play a lick of defense. And you could get away with that. You can no longer do that. That's why Mitchell Robinson barely played in the Celtics series, barely played in the playoffs, really. Why? Because he can't play defense. Yeah, he's a marksman as a three-point shooter, but if you can't play any defense, it's hard for you to stay on the court because teams are going to take advantage of you in the pick and roll. That said, I thought that Boston in the fourth quarter, it was like a tale of two halves with these quarters. The first quarter belonged to the Warriors. The second quarter belonged to the Celtics. The third quarter belonged to the Warriors. The fourth quarter belonged to the Celtics. So it was always like that second quarter of that half, the Celtics would make adjustments and they would be the better team. And they came out like gangbusters. What I watched in the fourth quarter of game one of the NBA Finals is something that I will never forget. It was a mesmerizing performance by a team that looked like poetry in motion on both the offensive and defensive sides of the basketball. If they played the way that they played in the fourth quarter of that game, this series won't even be close. Now, I don't think they can replicate what they were able to do in the fourth quarter. My eyes are still not sure what the hell I watched. That 40-point barrage, hitting your first 9 3-pointers, and at one point having 11 straight possessions where you don't miss a shot. Meanwhile, the Warriors go 5 straight minutes without scoring the basketball because the Celtics' defensive intensity ramped up and Steph Curry couldn't get loose. And all of a sudden, nobody else could hit any shots. They were having shot clock violations. The Celtics defensively were outstanding in the fourth quarter. But not only that, their offensive execution was flawless. And you're getting guys like Peyton Pritchard off the bench to come in and give you big-time fourth quarter crunch minutes to the point where Marcus Smart doesn't come back into the game until there's 3 minutes and some change left in the fourth quarter of game one. Peyton Pritchard gave them outstanding minutes, not only in the first half, but in the second half when the game was in the balance. How about another outstanding performance from Derek White? I mean, this guy's playing out of his gourd right now. I mean, they couldn't have imagined they'd be getting this from him when they traded for him from San Antonio before the trade deadline. They didn't know they were getting this. You could argue they're not where they are right now without Derek White's production. And my dad keeps saying he's instant offense off the bench. And I would say it's Derek White. Chill out, relax. No, literally, he's instant offense off the bench right now. The guy is shooting ridiculously from behind the arc. He's shooting with confidence. He's getting to the rim. He's knocking down floaters. He's playing good defense. I mean, what he's doing for them right now it's beyond me. I did not see this coming on a consistent basis. If he can keep this up, they'll be hard to beat. To me, though, I mean, Al Horford going bananas, ape shit, essentially in the fourth quarter. Are you kidding me? Big Al playing in his first NBA Finals, and he did not disappoint. The wait was well worth it with him playing the way that he did, knocking down 6 3-pointers in the game, and probably about 4 of them coming in that fourth quarter. He was just in another stratosphere with the way he was shooting the basketball and playing defense for that matter. He was outstanding in the game. But the guy that I thought was the difference maker was Jaylen Brown. And I was talking to my buddy about the game before the series took place. And I said, Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart are going to be the keys, because Jaylen Brown, to me, is the one guy that's not afraid to take the big shot or to be aggressive when nobody else wants to be aggressive. Like Jason Tatum, yeah, he's getting double teamed. Like, you can't talk about Mamba mentality and allow a double team to stop you. To me, if you're Jason Tatum, and Tatum to me is more like Kevin Durant in terms of his size and his length. When you have the kind of size and length that Jason Tatum has, no one can really block your shot, not your jump shot, at least. When you get to a spot on the court and you decide to rise up, nobody's blocking your shot. You're 6'8", 6'9", with a wingspan is probably every bit of 7'2", 7'3". And when you decide to raise up, no one's blocking your shot, okay? So to me, the double team's coming. Hurry up and get to a spot. Get to an elbow, all right? Get a couple of dribbles, get to the elbow before the double team comes, raise up, and get your shot off. Walk into a three-point shot. You are a patented step-back three-point guy. Use it. He won't even look for his shot at times. He's waiting for the double team to come. I can tell you this. He did a great job of getting his teammates involved and facilitating, but he did not shoot it well. He was 3 for 17. He will not shoot that poorly again. I can assure you of that. And so for the Celtics to go in there and win with him shooting the way that he did have 13 dimes, as I mentioned, so he did get others involved. He still impacted the game and played fantastic defense, especially in that fourth quarter. He was outstanding on the defensive end of the ball. But I thought Jaylen Brown was the savior of this game. When they were down 12 and they were hovering in that danger zone early in the fourth quarter with right around 10, 11 minutes to go in the game, and nobody looked like they wanted to seize control in terms of missed shots. The Warriors had a chance to push that lead up to 20, and they kept missing shots, and the Celtics weren't cutting into the league. They were still down 12-10. Jaylen Brown said, okay, enough of this shit. I'm going to do it. Nobody else wants to do it. I'm going to do it. And he, I thought, got uber aggressive. He attacked. He started knocking down shots. He did it on both ends of the floor. And it was his aggression, his assertiveness that brought the Celtics immediately. They go on a 7-0 run, cut the 12-point deficit to a 5-point lead. And then that's when the others started to show up. That's when Al Horford and Derek White and Peyton Pritchard and all these other guys, as Shaq likes to call them, the others, showed up and showed out. And before you know it, that 12-point deficit of 92-80 heading into the fourth quarter had ballooned to a 15-point Celtics lead. It's one of the greatest turnarounds I've ever seen in a game, in which a team like the Warriors has a lead at home that you just don't expect them to relinquish. They went from up 12 to at one point down by 18 in the fourth quarter. I've never seen anything quite like the performance from the Celtics in that fourth quarter. It was amazing. It shows what they can be when and the beauty of it is your best player scored 12 points. Your best player went 3 of 17 from the field, and he had some good looks. Jason Tatum had some great looks, not good, great looks from three-point land, and he just couldn't buy a basket. But you get 5 guys in double figures, 3 of them over 20 points or more. You got Jaylen Brown with 25. You got Al Horford with 24. You got Derek White with 21. I thought Marcus Smart was outstanding, especially early in the game. In the first quarter when the Warriors were going off, it was Marcus Smart's ability to make shots that kept them from falling behind by 8, 10, 12 in the first quarter. He had 18 points, and then Tatum had 12. That kind of balance is why the Celtics are dangerous, because the Warriors are so reliant upon Steph Curry, but they need other guys to step up. Klay Thompson, we keep talking about, game 6 Klay and all this shit. Well, you might not make it to game 6 if he keeps playing the way that he played in game number 1. And you've gotten more of those performances from Klay Thompson in these playoffs than the game 6 Klay that we've seen a couple of times show up in these playoffs. You've gotten more of these, 6 for 15 for 14 points, where he's not shooting the basketball well. He's not impacting the game on the defensive side. And I think that's where him not playing basketball for so long and him just coming back from that injury is impacting him the most. He's not the defender that he once was, because he couldn't stay in front of Jaylen Brown. And Jaylen Brown got to wherever he wanted to. Jaylen Brown got to the rim. Jaylen Brown was able to do what he needed to do to help his team scratch and claw its way back into the game, and Klay Thompson couldn't stop or slow him down from doing whatever he wanted to do in that fourth quarter. So you're not getting anything from Klay. Jordan Poole is on a milk carton right now. He was 3 for 7 for 9 points in the game. And Andrew Wiggins, for as good as he's been defensively, and I thought he was actually really solid defensively, he didn't give you anything. They got a monster performance from Otto Porter, who at one point was 4-4 from three-point land. And they got a good contribution from Iggy in his first game back. And they wasted it because none of the other guys, meaning Wiggins, Poole, or Clay, gave you anything. And Draymond, I don't look for Draymond Green to give me anything on the offensive side, but they are literally playing 4-on-5 basketball offensively. They are treating Draymond Green as if he doesn't exist on the offensive side of the football. On the offensive side of the ball. He's got to make them pay. And he can't shoot. They know that, but he's got to drive with the intent to score and make them respect him as an offensive player. If he can't do that, they're going to be in a world of trouble in this series because, again, I don't expect the Celtics to shoot lights out the way that they did in this game. Both teams actually shot it from three-point land really well going into the fourth quarter. The Warriors did. They didn't shoot it well in that fourth quarter, but the Celtics, for the most part, they were outstanding from three-point land the entire game. I can't imagine them shooting that well again. They're capable, as we saw, but Tatum's not going to shoot that bad again and play as poorly from an offensive perspective. And you've got to think if he's got it going, it's less shots for Horford. It's less shots for Marcus Smart. It's less shots for Derek White and the others. If Tatum's got it going, he's going to take 22 shots. He's not going to take 17, and so the production from those guys may come back a bit, but the Warriors could be in trouble. And the one thing I noticed last night is they look old. They look old. They look tired. They look slow and sluggish at times. That's why the infusion of those young boys, Kuminga and Moody and guys like that and Poole, it's going to be important that those guys, and really they need to get something out of James Wiseman because at some point you have to infuse that roster with youth. Andre Iguodala and Otto Porter and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. These guys are 30 and older. They're 30 plus years old. Okay. They're not spring chickens anymore. They need help and they need youthful exuberance out there on the court with them. So it's not going to happen this year. They're going to have to win it with the old wily vets if they're going to get it done. This is a young Celtics team that don't give a shit about that experience number. Me being a Bulls fan early in the 90s, being a massive Scottie Pippen fan and so because of that, being a Bulls fan, it feels a lot like that series when you could see the changing of the guard, Magic and company making it to the finals. And then, they won the first game and then the Bulls won the next 4 and closed those boys out in 5. I could see this being a 4-1 gentleman's sweep if they don't get their act together. Now, I don't want to overblow the fourth quarter because the Warriors were right there. They were in command of this game going into the fourth quarter, but the Celtics were right there. In the first half, despite Steph Curry going off in the first quarter, they were right there. We'll see what happens. Anyway, I think this is going to be a fantastic series. I'm not going to allow one game in one quarter to sway my decision as to how many games this thing goes. This is a 6 or 7 game series. But I still think the Celtics win. It's much easier for me to see the Celtics winning in 6 on their home floor, but this Celtics team has won every big must-win game on the road in the playoffs this year. So if they get to a game 7 in Golden State, in San Francisco against these Warriors, I don't think they'll blink. I don't think they'll flinch. So anyway, I digress. Let's get to our first segment of the show. You know what it is. It's a gem dropping session. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind. Let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So I'm going to do this nice and quick. I was thinking the other day, I was sitting down thinking, and I do this from time to time, just random ass thoughts that pop into my mind. And I'm sitting there. I have another channel. It's a card channel, and it's called Big Card Hunter. And I was opening a box of 2021 NFL Prism that just came out. All right, so it's a highly anticipated box, one of the premier products in the industry, in the hobby, as we like to call it. And so I was opening up that box, and after I was done, I got to thinking about how wide open the NFL is. Because every pack that I opened, I talked about this player changing teams and this player changing teams, and this guy's no longer on this team. And so it got me to thinking, how wide open? Really, every sport right now is wide open. There isn't a dominant team in any of the three major sports, right? There isn't a dominant baseball team, even though the Dodgers, you could argue, are dominant. They seem to be in the World Series or in the, at least at bare minimum, the NLCS every single year, it seems like, for the last 4 years or so. And they're good again this year. So you could argue, but they don't win it every year, right? They don't win the World Series every year. They've only, for all of the dominance that we've seen, they only have one World Series, right? So I think it's wide open in Major League Baseball, and we've seen a lot of good teams in Major League Baseball this year to start off the season, but there's still a lot of baseball to be played. There's not a dominant team in the NBA, and that's really odd to say, because for a very long time, wherever LeBron was, they were going to make it to the finals in the East. The minute he decided to go West, it opened everything up. Had he stayed in the East, I think it would still be whatever team LeBron's on, they're going to go to the NBA Finals from the East, and then you just got to figure out who's going to make it out of the West. And then, there it is. And when the Warriors had it going, when KD, so to me, the landscape of the NBA shifted when KD decided to leave the Warriors and go East, and LeBron decided to leave the Cavs and go West. So once that took place, to me, it opened up the East for anybody who wanted it. That allowed the Giannis's of the world and the Miami Heats of the world and the Boston Celtics and anybody else that was kind of being kept, down by LeBron and his dominance, allowed them to raise up and say, hey, I'm ready to do some damage. And then conversely, in the West, it's always wild and wacky and crazy out there. But the Warriors had their, thumb on the rest of the West, like, y'all chill out. And when KD left and then Clay gets injured, it opened up the West as well, and it became anybody's ball game. I mean, Phoenix had the best record in the West the last 2 years. So when you look at how things have evolved, and no one is afraid of the Phoenix Suns, anybody can win the NBA championship. We've seen injuries take place, and guys, Kawhi Leonard, and had they not gotten hurt last year, I think they would have made it to the finals last year, and they might have won it in LA with the Clippers. But it's wide open in the NBA. And in the NFL, once Brady and Belichick and the reign of terror in New England ended, and then they passed the baton to the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. But once they stopped being dominant, once the league kind of said, okay, enough of this shit, it's wide open. The NFC has always been a revolving door. Like, no one's ever been dominant in the NFC. It's always been the AFC that's had dominant teams, the Patriots, the Chiefs. But now that's not even the case. There is no dominant team in the NFL right now. The Tennessee Titans were the number 1 seed in the AFC last year. Like, let that sink in your brain for a second. Like, there is no dominant team. The Packers are good every year, but they're paper champions. They're going to get to the playoffs, and when they meet resistance, they fold up like a cheap lawn chair. So there is no dominant team in the NFL, and it got me to thinking, well, everybody's got a shot. Like, I know it's easy to say this time of the year, everybody, Jacksonville's got a shot, like Detroit's got a shot. Like, those teams aren't going to win the Super Bowl, right? We understand that. We know that those teams aren't good enough as is to win the Super Bowl. But we didn't think Cincinnati was going to do what they did last year, and look what happened with them. Now, granted, different roster, different set of circumstances. They were aggressive in free agency, and it all paid off. Every single one of their moves they made defensively in free agency paid off for them tenfold. And they had continuity, unlike Jacksonville, for instance, with the second-year quarterback that was number 1 overall, new head coach, new moving parts. It's not the same. They're just trying to get over the dysfunction and the stain left by Urban Meyer. They're not going to do what Cincinnati did last season. That said, it's wide open. It's anybody's guess as to what's going to happen. The AFC is ridiculous. It's murderer's row in terms of quarterbacks. And we know quarterbacks drive this league. So essentially what I'm saying to you is anything can happen. Anybody can win the Super Bowl this year. If your quarterback has an out-of-body experience and your defense comes to the party, why not you? And that's coming from a Washington, fan perspective. Like, if Carson Wentz morphs back into 2017 Carson Wentz and the defense goes back to 2020 status, why not Washington in a very wide open NFC conference, right? NFC. I got to stop doing that. In a wide open NFC, right? But in the AFC, they're going to beat the hell out of each other, right? But iron sharpens iron. So whoever makes it out of the AFC alive, you've got to think that they're battle tested and they're going to be one hell of a team to have to beat. And, I've been talking about this narrative of, hey, teams that have went out and gotten a future Hall of Fame quarterback with a roster that was ready to win already, just adding that quarterback in the offseason, they've won the last 2 Super Bowls. 2 years ago, it was Brady joining a Buccaneers team that kept hovering around 7-9, 8-8. He gets there, they go over the top, they win the Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford joins a Rams team that was good every year, makes the playoffs every year, but Jared Goff wasn't good enough when it counted in the postseason to get them where they ultimately wanted to go. They add Matthew Stafford, they win the Super Bowl. I'm looking at Denver and I'm saying, is it your turn? I'm looking at Cleveland with Deshaun Watson. I'm saying, is it your turn? Someone with a new quarterback is going to have a chance to hoist the Lombardi. But then I'm looking at what these young gunners like Justin Herbert, who's like, yo, I'm dying to get in the postseason. I'm saying, is it your turn? I'm looking at Josh Allen. I'm saying, bro, you've been on the cusp of being an MVP in this league. Is it your turn? There are so many different storylines and dynamics in the AFC with so many outstanding QBs. Patrick Mahomes is like, hey, don't forget about us. I know Tyreek Hill is no longer in Kansas City. Don't forget about us. We're not mincemeat over here. So it's going to be fascinating to watch how the season unfolds. But I said all of that to say this. Everyone has a chance. Everyone's got a shot, and we'll see how this season plays itself out. But if you're a team that's been hovering around 7 wins, 6 wins, 8 wins, 9 wins, and you've been missing the playoffs, but you've been somewhere in that 6 to 9 win range the last 2 or 3 seasons, this could be your year. That's all I'm saying. All right. Especially if you're in the NFC where there aren't any dominant teams. You've got the Bucks with Tom Brady, and you've got the Rams with Matthew Stafford. Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay has a whole new cast of characters. I don't know what to make of their team right now. I'm not going to assume that they're going to be the same Packers of old without Devontae Adams. He was such a huge part of what they did offensively. I'd like to think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to drag whatever they put out on the field to the playoffs with a 13-win mark. But I need to see it first. He's getting older. He's not getting any younger. You can't expect a guy to carry the burden and the load as he gets older and older and older. Like Brady, even in Tampa Bay, when they won the Super Bowl, that run game was really big for them in that postseason run. Like Brady can't just put a team on his back anymore, even though he's still doing it at a very high level. Don't get me wrong. He needs the run game. He needs the defense to be really good. Can't do it by himself anymore. Aaron Rodgers has never really done it, to the Super Bowl level. He's done it in the regular season, but we've seen he's tried to carry this team to the Super Bowl. That year, I think it was 2016, where he goes to Dallas and shreds the Cowboys. And has that throw to Jared Cook on the sidelines. Like, he tried to carry them with no defense that year to go to Atlanta the following week in the championship game and get destroyed. There's only so much you can do. So we'll see. It's wide open, man. It's anybody. I mean, Cleveland could be in the Super Bowl. I wouldn't be shocked with Deshaun Watson. The Chargers could be in the Super Bowl. They've made as many big splash moves this offseason as any team in the league. If they are in the Super Bowl, are you shocked? I'm not. If Buffalo finally breaks through, are you batting an eye? I'm not. I'm just telling you, man, anybody can get the job done. It'll be interesting to see what happens this upcoming season. So that's going to do it for my gym dropping session. That moves us to social media maneuvers. I'm a midday marauder. You know what it is. So let's get to the comment section, see what you guys have to say as we're moving right along here. Got Got a couple of super chats, and I'll take a few of the hashtags before we move on. Dejan Bell, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Dejan Bell, writes, Lou, you might as well slide the training camp. I may go out there, man. I know it was hot as shit, and I really don't want the smoke, but we'll see what happens, man. I would definitely try to get out there though, and see the fellas and see what they up to. Fat Boy V, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Lou? What it do, Lou? What it do, man? Fat Boy V. He says, we got an 11-win team on our hands. Hashtag drinking the Kool-Aid. Celtics in 6 or 7. I feel the same way you do about the Celtics Warrior series. I think the Celtics win it in 6 or 7. I feel the same way you do with this football team. We've got an 11 win. I'm gonna say double digit. Yeah, 11 or 12 is ideal. 10 I think is within reason. Anything less than 10, I'll be disappointed. I'm not gonna lie to you. Anything over 11, and I'm ecstatic. So, but the schedule suggests that that's doable. Doesn't mean it will happen, but it's very doable. I agree with everything that you've said there, Fat Boy V. Thank you for the super chat. Red Wings 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, F in chat for Fitz and Frank. We're going to talk about Fitz a little bit later on in the show, and Frank as well. You know, ode to two of the wily vets of the game that were outstanding and somewhat underappreciated throughout their careers, both of them. And one will be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. Anyway, I digress there. Let's see. Got another super chat here. Oh, my guy, Big Money Sonny, doing his Big Money Sonny thing. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Big Money Sonny. My guy, BMS. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, Sonny, feel like blessing you today, my good brother. I appreciate that, man. Thank you for the blessings. Greatly appreciate them. He says, people really out here saying we were a one-night stand with Fitzpatrick. I honestly can't blame them. Stay blessed, homie. I feel that way. I feel dirty. Like anytime I see him in a Washington football team uniform, I feel dirty because I'm like, of all the 9 teams that he was with, he really wasn't with us. You know, we're on the Ryan Fitzpatrick ledger. Our name is forever going to be there, but he was never really a commander or a football team member. He was just here with, had a cup of tea, 13 plays, and that was it. So I kind of feel like I don't like when they have the Ryan Fitzpatrick reunion party and all the teams that he's played for get together, Tennessee, Cincinnati, Buffalo, the Jets, Tampa Bay, Rams, when they all come together, Dolphins. I kind of feel like we're going to be sitting at a table off in the corner by ourselves. Everyone's going to be mingling and talking about great times with Ryan Fitzpatrick. And, oh, you remember the time when his face mask got pulled and he threw a no-look pass down the sidelines to Mac Hollins and we beat the Raiders on a Saturday night? Oh, my God, it was crazy. Remember the time he had the crazy start to the season and he wore Deshaun Jackson's jacket and his gold chains? Oh, my God, what a riot. Remember that season he had with Buffalo with Stevie Johnson and yeah, when they're having all those stories, we don't have a story to tell. So we're sitting off in the corner by ourselves, and it's going to take Ryan Fitzpatrick to come over and say, hey, it's okay. You can come over and join the conversation. But really, we can't. We have nothing to add to that Ryan Fitzpatrick reunion. Literally, we were a one-night stand, if you will. So, yeah, it's rough, but I never wanted him in the first place, so I don't feel bad about it. I truly don't. John Graves the third, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. JG3 writes, you might need to avoid training camp, Lou. Whatever they saw at OTAs had the other content creators talking extremely reckless on Rio's last stream. Look, anytime you get out there in person, you get excited. I've been out there in person. I remember coming back feeling really excited. This is like 2016. I think I went out there. And it look, if you're on the fence and you go out there, it might push you over to feel confident. If you were already feeling good and then you go out there, you're going to feel invincible. So at the end of the day, just going out there isn't enough. You got to like what you see when you go out there. They had a great time. They took pictures. You've seen it on everyone's social media, and so they're feeling really good about the team. So yeah, you're going to have people talking maybe extremely reckless. This is the time of the year to do that. Okay. I've been talking extremely reckless at times. I mean, when the schedule was released, I was out of my mind. I told you I'm spiking the punch. I'm spiking the Kool-Aid. Well, I told you guys at the end of the show, this Kool-Aid doesn't have any Kool-Aid left. There's no juice content. It's all alcohol, 100% alcohol. Okay. I've spiked it that much. I got drunk that night. I told you guys, sip slow. So yeah, I could see how, you could get caught up in the excitement of going to camp, seeing these players up close and personal. They're playing against each other without pads on. Guys aren't going to the ground. It's not real football. So again, it's OTAs. All right. It's OTAs. There's nothing to really get worked up about. Okay. So I'm not going to, it's organized team activities, or as I like to call them, off-season training activities. There's nothing to see here. All right. But it's cool that those content creators got out there and got to meet those guys and take pictures and all that stuff. I like the initiative that the team is doing by, trying to be a lot closer to the fan base. And, to me, that's a smart move to endear yourself to these content creators, because they're just as big on this platform as the actual team is. So I think it's smart on their part to do that. But look, if you're feeling good, you're feeling good. It's really not much, there about that. If you're feeling good and then you go out there, you're going to feel even better. So that's probably what happened. Kyle, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Kyle, writes, you think Watson will be a distraction for the Browns all year? No, I don't. He's going to get suspended. I firmly believe that. We're going to have the Deshaun Watson conversation. I think I'm going to do it next week. We're going to have that conversation, and it'll be a nice in-depth conversation about what I think his season will entail, what will happen with his situation, what the verdict will ultimately be, and how their season could potentially go. But I think it'll be a distraction early on, much like Michael Vick when he first got out of prison for the dog fighting ring. It was a distraction. Peter was at every game, and they were out there protesting. That got old about week 7 or 8, and nobody else was talking about it. He had a fantastic year. Next thing you know, no one's talking about that shit anymore. Yep, it'll be a story early on in the season when he first comes back. If he gets suspended a few games, the first few games after he gets back from his suspension, it'll be a story. You'll have protesters out there maybe, and then they'll win some games. We'll get to about week 9 or 10, and if he's playing outstanding football, that shit will fall by the wayside. So I don't think it'll be that big of a distraction, but I could be wrong. We'll see. Stephen Combs, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Stephen Combs, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, sup, Lou? Sup, Stephen? Says, about to get back from Europe. Oh, awesome. He says, psyched about this season. Saw AGG might move to tight end. Thoughts? OTAs look tight. Think team has matured enough. So AGG has already made the transition to tight end. He will be a part of the tight end group this upcoming season. So that is a real thing. We've talked about it already. I love the move. Scott Turner talked about it. Like, we were already loaded at receiver. There was no chance of him making the team there. He came back jacked at 230 pounds. And so they were like, bro, you just need to go ahead and make that transition to tight end. So that's what they did. And it's going to be a process for him. I don't expect him to contribute right away, but he could be a guy that maybe next year could, get the intricate details of the position down pat and actually be a really good contributor at that position, a la Niles Paul, down the road. So we'll see there. He says, do I think the team is matured enough? We'll see. Only time will tell, but I think last year, as Ron Rivera put it, was a slice of humble pie for this team. They needed to have that wake-up call. For whatever reason, you win 9 games and win a terrible division, and somehow you thought that you had arrived. That's scary. That you could win 7 games and think that you've arrived. We weren't even over 500. We weren't even at 500. And guys were over here thinking that, oh, we just got to show up and we'll be fine. And yeah, there were some new pieces and COVID hit, and there were a lot of excuses that you could make for the slow start. No OTAs, everything was virtual. Every team had to deal with that. I don't want to hear that shit. Every team had to deal with the same circumstances that we had. We just didn't get it done, and we weren't mature last year, and it showed. Will we have a much more mature team, 1 year later? I don't know. I'd like to think that there will be just a bit of continuity that you see from a group of players that has played with one another for 3 years now. If you've been here since Ron's gotten here, I do think there are some players that got here last year that are more comfortable another year, deeper into the scheme and what they're being asked to do, like a William Jackson III, for instance. So I do think there will be some guys that'll be just a lot more comfortable in what they're being asked to do in the upcoming season. So I do think there will be a little bit of a maturity factor from that standpoint, but how you handle success is going to be key. It's easy in life to get it done when you're up. How do we handle not getting it done? Failures. Everything is cool when you're up, but when you're down, can you battle adversity? I didn't think we did a great job of that at the end of the season. We didn't battle adversity very well. But I thought we fought back from adversity early in the season. So, if you're looking to hang your hat on something, we were 2-6. And then we won 4 games in a row and battled through adversity and got back to 500, despite having guys injured like Chase Young and Montez Sweat and, JD McKissick and Landon Collins. Despite having guys injured, we battled back and won 4 straight games. So we showed that we could fight through adversity. We showed it in Ron's first year in 2020. Started the season off 1-5 and rallied back to 6-6 on the season. Once again, getting back to 500 before, having the season kind of slip away, but not fully slip away. And luckily enough for us, the division stunk. So we were able to still win it at 7-9. But at the end of the day, I think this team will be a little bit more mature. We'll see, though. That's one of those things I just want to see anyway. And safe travels back from Europe. If you're not already back, if you're about to be back, safe travels. And I hope you enjoyed your time overseas. So I'll take a couple of hashtags and then we'll end the show real quick. JP says, Lou, man, I can't stand Golden State at all. I hate their dynasty and their annoying bandwagon fans, but they're going to win that series. Also, my Lakers hired Darvin Ham to be our head coach. I agree. Warriors fans, if you're on socials, they're annoying as hell. And you're right, they're bandwagon fans because they weren't there until Steph and company got there. Most of them, not all of them, most of them. A lot of them are young kids, though, young boys that, 20, 19, 22. So, yeah, I don't pay them much attention, but I know when we were in the series against them, they were all over social media. And even in conversations that have nothing to do with them, they impart themselves. And, yeah, they're very annoying. That said, I don't see them winning this series. And, yes, you hired Darvin Ham. We'll see how that goes. We all know LeBron is the real coach of that team. So we'll see how far it goes. Unless you have – and I think a lot of people assume that, Eric Spoelstra was just riding the coattails of LeBron and company. I think everyone's figured out the guy's a legitimate head coach. He's a real deal coach, right? Not so much for Ty Lue. I think there's still a debate on whether he's a good coach or not. We'll see. But we'll see what Darvin Ham is. What I've seen from these assistants, I have one in Taylor Jenkins. We're seeing what Ime Udoka is doing in Boston. These assistants, these long-time assistants that have played in the league or just have learned from guys that have done it at a high level, and you've been assistant long enough and you get your opportunity, these guys are taking advantage of these opportunities, man. Even a job that my man in New Orleans for the Pelicans is doing. I mean, I think you get the right one of these assistants and you got something, and we'll see if you guys have something on your hands or not. Let's see. JP also says, to continue my comment, Ham was well respected around the league as a no-nonsense type of guy. I'm optimistic that he can do well in LA, but we need to fix that roster somehow. I don't think there is a way to fix that roster. You guys, this is what happens when you try to appease LeBron and you go out here and you add all of these bad contracts and these veteran players. Your roster's effed. You got a lot of guys that are just dudes. You know, they're Jags. So I don't know if you can fix that roster. You can try, but I don't know if you're going to be able to. JP says, also heard you're starting not to like the Red Sox in MLB, but put some damn respect on us. After our miserable start offensively, especially Trevor Story, he is on fire and we're winning. It's not that I don't like the Red Sox. I just don't like how they go about their business. But I don't care about I don't care about the Red Sox. They don't move me all that much. But they're like 1A or 1B to the Yankees 1A in terms of, you know, going out and getting whatever player they want, spending a whole bunch of money. Them and the Dodgers, all three of those teams, how they spend money is ridiculous. So anyway, I digress. Let's see. JP says, Lou, bro, it's time to tell us the story about how you converted your Bulls fandom into Grizzlies fandom. We'll do that. I promise. I'm gonna do that this off season. I'm gonna talk about the Madden trap. I'm gonna give you guys story time with Uncle Lou. You'll get that at some point this season. Got one here from Big Money Sonny. I think I might have skipped over this and missed out on this one. I don't know how, but Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy, Big Money Sonny. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Big Money Sonny, who writes, it's Friday. Louie's on, drinking a beer and living life. What more can I ask for? Hashtag Cherry Squad. Appreciate you, Big Money Sonny, man. Thank you for the love and support. You guys are also, you guys are awesome. I really do appreciate you guys. Anyway, I digress. So let's transition to my final segment of the show, and that is the garbage time. So Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's done. He's going to retire. I've talked about this multiple times, and how he's a guy that is a league treasure and that we need to give him his flowers while he can still smell them, because when you look at him, yeah, he's not a Hall of Fame player, but his zest for the game, the way he plays the game, on edge, having fun, smiling, the way he conducts himself, it was childlike exuberance. It was Brett Favre-like, and the way he played the game was Brett Favre-like, if we're being honest. I think that's why so many people gravitated towards Ryan Fitzpatrick, because he played the game like Brett Favre, and that's why a lot of people love Brett Favre. Is, look, you didn't know what the hell was going to happen. If Brett was going to roll out to his right, make a dude miss, and throw a 45-yard, strike to Antonio Freeman for a touchdown, or if he was going to throw back across his body trying to hit, Donald Driver and get picked off. You didn't know, but you damn sure were at the edge of your seat waiting to see. And that was Ryan Fitzpatrick, man. I mean, he was a guy that played the game the way it's meant to be played. Balls to the wall, no apologies, no excuses. Everything he had in the tank, he was going to give it to you. And, the many faces of Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, when he was in New York, I remember him doing an interview with, blood coming from his nose, because he always had that helmet where he would get hit and it would come all the way down. First of all, he wore his helmet all the way down on his face, so it would be like down here. So he would get hit, then the bridge of his nose would meet the top of his helmet where the cushion is, but it would come down and it would hit it and it would cut his nose. So he's bleeding because he's running all over the place. I remember him scoring a touchdown one time with the Jets, and his teammate is shaking him and his eyes are like silver dollars, and so he played the game that way, though. He would run John Elway helicopter and into the end zone. He put his body on the line. God played with a reckless abandon that you could only love. You couldn't help but love it, and wherever he went, there's a reason why the guy started for 9 different teams. You don't start for 9 different teams. You could play for 9 different teams. You don't start for 9 different teams unless there's some kind of a characteristic about you that lends itself to, players and coaches alike gravitating towards you and believing in you. He got 9 different franchises to believe in him. Not that they were going to win a Super Bowl, but that he was good enough to get them to the playoffs and give themselves a chance. Now, again, I've said this, and it was a rule. It was in the rule book. Any team that had a game started by Ryan Fitzpatrick in the regular season was not allowed to make the postseason, and he never did make the postseason. But there were some seasons in there where he was spectacular, and he gave fans, just the joy of the season for them. Buccaneers fans early in that, I want to say it was the might have been 2018 season. Obviously the Jets in 2015, he was outstanding in that season. They won double-digit games, but it just wasn't good enough to make the postseason. In Buffalo, there was a run there where they gave him a big contract because he was balling for the Bills. I mean, he's had his moments. The Dolphins, I mean, you could argue they were 3-3. They took Ryan Fitzpatrick out of the lineup, right? And they inserted Tua, and everyone agreed with the move. They said, "Oh, the Dolphins are being, aggressive here, and they're being shrewd in the way they're handling this." And Fitzpatrick was the only guy that was like, "Yo, this is bullshit. Like, I really love this team. This is my team. We started out 0-3. We've won 3 in a row. We've been dominant the last 2 weeks, and now you're going to bench me for the rookie." But he took it like a champ in true Ryan Fitzpatrick fashion. And when they called his number later on in the season on a Saturday night against the Raiders on the road, he comes in the game and it's like he never left. He starts throwing BBs and darts all over the field. And then the Raiders look like they're going to win the game. They just scored a touchdown to take the lead. They're up 2. And Fitzpatrick, in a desperate situation, is about to heave it down the sidelines to Mac Hollins, who's running wide open. What kind of coverage the Raiders called themselves playing in that particular situation, don't ask me. I don't know. But he's running down the sidelines open, and Fitzpatrick's about to load up to throw it to him. And here comes one of the edge rushers for the Raiders, grabbing Ryan Fitzpatrick by the face mask and twisting it to the point where he can't see. His helmet is literally covering his entire face. And he still launches the bad boy down the sidelines, and Mac Hollins somehow comes down with the football. Patrick Mahomes, who we know is the maestro of the no-look pass, tweeted out in the moment, "That is the greatest no-look pass in NFL history." I don't know if anyone surpassed it to this point. Matthew Stafford made a couple of throws during the Super Bowl run that were fantastic, however. But nonetheless, that catch coupled with the face mask penalty put the Dolphins in field goal range. They kicked the game-winning field goal and stunned the Raiders. And had he not gotten COVID heading into that Week 17 matchup versus the Bills, they probably win that game and make the playoffs. But that's the story of Ryan Fitzpatrick, is that something always happened and transpired. It was never in the cards for him to make the postseason, but he's one of the most celebrated undrafted quarterbacks in NFL history. This guy, was he undrafted? I shouldn't say that. I think he might have been a 7th round pick out of Harvard back in 2005. I don't know if he was undrafted. I think he was a 7th round pick, but for him to have the career that he has had and for him to play the game the way that he played it, I told you that I always talked about Ryan Fitzpatrick. I would joke a lot of times because Ryan Fitzpatrick is Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I would always say after I was done, you guys need to treasure, Ryan Fitzpatrick. You need to, love Ryan Fitzpatrick while he's here to be loved, because he's a guy that, to me, is good for the game of football. and you'll miss him when he's gone. And it looks like he has played his last snap of football. It's a shame that it ended the way that it did with him having the hip injury in Washington. The story goes that he took his kids. He's got a lot of kids. He took his kids to the water park in Washington, and he fell on the water slide, hurt his hip, and that injury lingered into the regular season, and he got hit because the hit that he took against the Chargers in week 1 kind of looked really innocuous. It looked like a very, normal NFL sack of a quarterback, yet he was unable to get up. And so a lot of people think that water slide was really the culprit, and the sack by the Chargers pretty much, topped it off. It was, the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, or in this case, the straw that broke Ryan Fitzpatrick's hip. Either way, his career is done. He's got some gaudy numbers for a guy that was a 7th round pick once upon a time, but by no means is he a Hall of Famer. So don't starting that conversation. But he was one of the most electric players to watch when he was on the field, because you never knew what was going to happen. You didn't know if he was going to lead a team on a 13 play, 77-yard game-winning drive, or if he was going to take them on a 12-play drive that needed to be 13 in order for it to be a touchdown, and throw a pick on that 12th play of that drive, and lose the game by 6 or 4. But you had to watch. That was for certain when Ryan Fitzpatrick was on the field. So the NFL is losing one of its league treasures in Ryan Fitzpatrick. Also, Frank Gore, Frankie baby. All right. The inconvenient truth, old man Frank, forever Frank. There's so many nicknames that go with Frank Gore and his run in the NFL. That spanned, every bit of the same amount of time as Ryan Fitzpatrick, probably that same 05 draft. I believe Frank Gore was in, if not 05, somewhere in that neighborhood, 06, 07, but I think he was an 05er as well. He's played with a number of teams just like Fitzpatrick did, but it's crazy when you look up in the annals of the NFL history books, Frank Gore is like in the top 5 in NFL rushing all time. And so he is a guy that I don't think gets the respect that he necessarily deserves, but his numbers speak louder than any words I could tell you. And, I liken him to Curtis Martin, another guy that I don't think really ever got the respect that he deserved during his playing career, but, ended up in the Hall of Fame, and people looked up and said, wow, Curtis Martin had some outstanding years and some big time numbers. And I think that's what's ultimately going to happen with Frank Gore. You're going to look up, you're going to see the numbers that he posted, and you're going to say Frank Gore was an outstanding football player. He's going to get into the Hall of Fame. I don't know if he's a first ballot Hall of Famer or not, but it's going to be hard to keep a guy like Frank Gore out of the Hall of Fame. He's going to sign a 1-day contract with the 49ers and retire a 49er. So good for Frank Gore. Good for guys like him in the league who have been pillars, who have done it the right way, put their head down and just play ball. That was Frank Gore. And 2 of the elder statesmen of the league are retiring this offseason, along with Ben Roethlisberger, who might have been the, outside of Brady, might have been the longest tenured player in the league, coming from that 04 draft. I think Brady, obviously, with the 2000 draft, is a guy that's up there. Andrew Whitworth is interesting. He's also an older player. Don't know what draft he was in, but it's got to be like 03, 04, somewhere in there. So, yeah, and I think he retired this offseason as well. So we're starting to see a lot of these elder statesmen who, were early 2000s guys starting to hang it up officially. So it's really a changing of the guards, because Ryan Fitzpatrick was the best backup quarterback in the NFL, hands down, bar none. And so it'll be interesting to see who takes over that mantle now. Who's the next best, backup quarterback in the league? But Ryan Fitzpatrick kind of held that mantle for a very long time. And, we call him a backup, but he started in a lot of places. So shout out to Ryan Fitzpatrick for a hell of an NFL career. And same can be said for future Hall of Famer Frank Gore. Thank you guys for allowing me to, go off on a second there. I got a couple of super chats that will end the show from my guy, Big Money Sonny. Thank you for the super chat, Big Money Sonny. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, nah, Yankees all day, baby. I mean, look, if you're a Yanks fan, you're a Yanks fan. But if you're not a Yankees fan, you can't stand the Yankees. They're the villain in Major League Baseball. And every sport needs a good villain. And the Yankees will always, always, always be the villain because either you love them or you hate them. Just like the Duke Blue Devils will always, always, always be the villains in college basketball because they're just that good. The Yankees are just that good. The Lakers are just that good. When they've got good players, the Lakers are the villains of the NBA. I think the Warriors are kind of morphing into that, but it's always going to be the Lakers. The Lakers are always going to be the biggest attraction in the NBA. And, when they've got a superstar player, they're going to be the villains if they're any good. So, they're just certain teams. The Patriots were that in the NFL. There's just certain teams that resonate as a villain. But the Yankees as an organization are the villain. Like, it doesn't matter what players cycle through there. They're always the villain. And I'm not a Yankees fan, so naturally I can't stand the Yankees. But I've always told you guys this. While you need a good villain and you like to see the villain lose, the league is always better when the villain is good. Now, you don't want the villain to win the championship, but they need to be in the playoffs. It's good for the league. Like, the league doesn't win when the Lakers aren't in the playoffs, right? Like, even if it's a first round exit like it was last year in the playoffs when they got beat by Phoenix, you still need them in the playoffs. But the playoffs were solid this year, but it wasn't great. You want the Yankees to be good. Major League Baseball is better when the Yankees and the Red Sox and the blue bloods of the sport are good. You want to see them lose when they get there, but it's better when they're there, right? Same with Duke. You hate Duke. You want to see them, choke, but you want them in the NCAA tournament. Like 2 years ago when they weren't in the tournament, that's not good for college basketball. So anyway, I digress. Same with the Patriots. The Patriots stink. And yeah, it's not the same when Brady's not there. But, they weren't in the playoffs a couple of years ago. Nobody really cared. But they were back in the playoffs. And it was good to see them get spanked by the Buffalo Bills when they got there. Like, who didn't enjoy that ass kicking? Right? That's how it goes. Anyway, your Yankees are playing good ball this year. And we'll see if they can keep it up. Anyway. Let's see. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy, Big Money Sonny. Thank you for holding the kid down on this beautiful Friday afternoon / evening. Who writes, "Hey Lou, I'm sure you're waiting on the outcome of the latest Daniel Snyder saga, but can you provide a quick rundown of what's going on? I've been out of the loop. Enjoy your weekend, brother." Sure. Look, so right now, obviously Daniel Snyder's under investigation for financial improprieties that have been brought to Congress's attention, right? So there's a whistleblower that used to work for the organization. If you're a Daniel Snyder supporter and backer, you're saying that this guy is a salty ex-employee that was fired that has an axe to grind and he's got nothing. If you want Daniel Snyder out, you're saying, hey, let's listen to this guy. Let's hope he's got some proof. And if he's got any concrete evidence that supports two different books, one that Washington was keeping privately that allowed them to withhold funds from the rest of the league, and another book that showed them, being like the other 31 leagues, organizations in the league and sharing that money the way that they're supposed to, then he's gone. But if there is no proof, it's just he said, she said, it doesn't matter. He's not going anywhere. So right now, that's an ongoing investigation. Also, there have been, of course, the sexual misconduct, workplace environment issues that have gone on in Washington for a very long time. They have reportedly asked Daniel Snyder to come and speak. They want to hear from him and several others about the workplace environment and the culture that had existed The women that have been impacted are not letting that thing go, nor should they. They feel like he needs to be out as owner and he needs to pay for his sins. The league does not feel that way, and I don't think anything ultimately is going to happen. But he has been called to essentially, speak about the workplace environment, and we're going to hear what we've heard if he does eventually go and speak. And he's going to say, "Look, that was 10 years ago. That was 15 years ago. It's a different organization now. All of these claims are from the past. We have done so many things to get this organization up to speed and clean up a lot of the things that went on when I wasn't around." Okay. Bruce Allen was and Vinny Serrato, those guys were more hands-on. I was kind of letting those guys run the show, and I wasn't as hands-on as an owner. Now I'm taking control of my organization. That's what he's going to say. Nobody believes that shit for 1 second. This man walked into the draft room and demanded that we take Dwayne Haskins in the 2019 NFL draft. Bullshit if you're telling me that this guy isn't, fully involved in this organization. Now, since Ron has gotten there, I think he's taken a step back because out of necessity, he's been suspended. The spotlight has been on him. He's been fighting allegations. He's been trying to sue people in court for defamation of character. So there's been a lot going on with him. So he hasn't actually had the time to be as hands-on as he's been over the last probably, 18, 19 years during his run as owner of the Washington Commanders / football team and Redskins. However, make no mistake about it, he still is the owner and he still has the pulse of what's going on a daily basis, within his organization. So he's going to tell the lie that, oh, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know that the workplace environment had gotten so toxic. Remember, he threw Bruce Allen under the bus in his Happy Thanksgiving introductory press conference for Ron Rivera, where he essentially put everything that had been going on in the organization in the lap of Bruce Allen. Now that he's gone, and this toxic environment that he allowed to permeate in the walls of Washington is now gone, we can move forward. Like, that's what you're going to hear from him if he does speak. So they're trying to get his ass out of there. The government, not the league. The government is trying to get his ass out of there, right? It's not going to happen. Okay. In the league, remember there was a report a couple of weeks ago that said, oh, the owners are taking votes as to whether Daniel Snyder will be forced to sell as an owner in the NFL. No, they're not. They were never taking votes. Owners have been talked to off the record that have said, taking votes? I'm not aware. No one's asked me how I felt about Daniel Snyder and had me cast a vote as to whether he should remain an owner in this league. He's not going anywhere. I've talked about these owners having skeletons in their closets, and they don't want to out a dude because if they out him, it could happen to them, and they don't want the smoke. So there's a number of things going on with Daniel Snyder right now, right? But at the end of the day, I don't think anything ultimately is going to happen to him, which is why I don't really like talking about it, because I've always said there's nothing to see here. Move on. There's nothing to see here. Okay. Until you get the smoking gun, with visual evidence, I need him on videotape with gun in hand, pulling trigger, and in order to get him convicted. If we don't, he can hire the best lawyers in the world to create doubt within the jury and get him off. So, metaphorically speaking, of course. So I don't see a way in which he ends up being pushed out as owner unless, and I've said that there was an opportunity for fatigue to set in with these owners. I don't know if that's going to take place either, because if that were the case, this would be the time. Fatigue would be the time right now. You're just sick and tired of being sick and tired of talking about him, his organization, and nonsense every year. But clearly, that's not enough for them. So anyway, I digress. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the 265th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I thank you guys for joining me. Look forward to chopping it up with you next week. Lot of good things going on over the weekend. Nothing bigger than game 2 of the NBA Finals, Sunday night, 8 p. Warriors have to have that one. All the pressure's on them. The Celtics have already done what they look to do, which was steal one and steal home court advantage. Now they can be greedy. And if this will tell me all I need to know about the Celtics, and the level of maturity that they may have. All right. If they lose game 2, but they lose by 5 in a very competitive game, that tells me that they're mentally locked in, they're focused, and they're not taking anything for granted, and they're mature enough to handle the win that they got and really, use that win to catapult them to potentially winning an NBA championship. If they take game 2 and pretty much you say, hey, we did what we needed to do and treated this house money, and they end up losing that game by 18, then they could lose the series because they're not focused mentally enough to get the job done. I hate when people say, well, they did what they needed to do and they checked out. That's not what championship level teams do. You got your foot on somebody's neck, you're looking to crush their larynx. You're trying to crush their windpipe. You ain't looking to let up. You're trying to hand out a California smile. At that point, no, put your mouth on the sidewalk. Put your mouth on the sidewalk. So I can't envision the Warriors allowing the Celtics to come in there and win 2. But what happens when you don't have any answers? We'll see. I expect game 2 to be raucous, the crowd to be electric, the Warriors to feed off that energy, and we'll see if the Celtics, who have been, road warriors, literally, this postseason, if they're able to yet again defy the odds and get another big road victory. They've been outstanding on the road this postseason, and game 1 was another example. Golden State, up until that point, had not lost a single game at home in the postseason. That's over with. And the Celtics have now won their last 4 road postseason games. Think about that for a second. They won all 3 of the last games on the road against the Miami Heat. After losing the first game of the series to Miami in Miami, they won the final 3 games on the road, including game 7 of that series on the road. And then they go to Golden State and win game 1. Like I said, and then keep in mind that they went to Milwaukee in a must-win game 6 and beat the Bucks. So they've won their last 4 out of 5 on the road in hostile environments. Should be interesting what game 2, and all the pressure's on Golden State. So I can't wait to watch that game. Should be entertaining. You guys enjoy your weekend, and we'll come back and chop it up and recap game 2 and catch up on the weekend and see what you guys were up to. Until then, you know what it is. Get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man, Louie T. You guys have a great weekend. Stay safe. God bless. Good night.